Her Bak, Chapter 4, The Divine Word. Seated among the students, Her Bak, for the first time, received instruction from the linguist, assisted by the symbolist. Her Bak, said the linguist, having watched him in silence, have you, newly come among us, been taught concerning the Meduneters? Indeed, master, I was a pupil in the school for scribes. Then instruct us, what is the number of our fundamental letters? Am I to answer regarding the signs that represent an idea, the groups of letters, or the letters apart? My question was clear. The fundamental letters are the elementary principles of word-making. No perspicacious man can fail to see that each comes in numerical order, itself necessarily a number. You can't be ignorant of this, since you know. Her Bak stammered an apology. The linguist pressed him. No doubt you can explain to us the properties of the letter U. No answer came from Her Bak. And the letter M? Forgive me, our teachers never mentioned these details. Don't apologize for your ignorance, Her Bak, but for having pretended to know. These are not details. They are the essential basis of our teaching. Nevertheless, they are not disclosed to scribes and students. No hand was ever entitled to write them. They are a sacred treasure of the house of life. The linguist fell silent, and no one dared question him. Presently he spoke again, weighing each word. These are secrets of Thoth and Seshat. Sefekt writes them into nature. None can undo the sevenfold seal without her aid. This is obscure to a beginner. Can one learn about this without understanding it? The master's mouth speaks fundamental principles in the disciple's ear. The disciple hears them according to the openness of his heart. If this is so, the unworthy can never see their real meaning. Why wrap them in such secrecy? The tongue may falsify teaching not well understood. False doctrine arises in this way. May I put one more question? Many scribes seem learned in the letters and signs of various epochs. Could this be possible without their knowing the basis? A judicious question, Her Bak. As regards essential truths, the sacred teaching begins with the complexity of becoming and ends with the simplicity of beginning, for there lie the secrets that are not to be spoken. The students listened greedily, astonished that they had never elicited this answer. Her Bak watched their reaction and voiced his own astonishment. How is it that this doesn't make students rebel? Man is so made that he takes pleasure in complex doctrines and details of appearance. The subtle connection between one thing and the other only interests those rare, predestined ones who don't let themselves be put off by a dry simplicity. Concise teaching asks for personal effort and development of this intuitive gift on the student's part. Selection comes about naturally in this way. The disciple's face cleared, and the linguist questioned him again. When ignorant, you joined the school for young scribes. How did you learn to read hieroglyphs? By writing words? Just so. How do you discern the meaning of words spelt with the same letters? By the sign image that specifies each, such as the sign of 3 flowers that designates a vegetable. How do you recognize a word that expresses an idea? By the image that signifies what is without form and body. What is this image? A papyrus, rolled and sealed. The papyrus has form and body. Why was it chosen to express an idea that has neither? Her Bak stammered a vague reply. It must be expressed by something. Couldn't the something be a point, a dash, a sign that isn't an object? My answer was stupid. What the master says is right. Why not have chosen one of these signs? First, because they would be conventional. Then to show nothing in nature is pure quality. Quality in itself is imperceptible to the senses, unknowable. We can't name it. But the initiate knows that insomuch as they are numbers, our letters show aspect of pure quality. The symbolist supplemented this. Everything in nature, Her Bak, rests on something material, or it is in some sort of relation with a material fact. There is a plate on the next page of Thoth, Master of the Medunitors. Is thought material? Asked the novice, shocked. You can't think without attaching your idea to some tangible fact or thing. You think of cold, the idea of cold is referred to what your body knows of it. If you think of good or evil, you refer the good or evil to the man who does it. If you think of the formation of an idea, the idea proceeds from a brain. If you think of space, the extent of the sky, you measure it with reference to the earth and the stars. Everything your brain can reflect on is compared with something that is sensorially perceptible and therefore relative. That is why ideas, which you call non-material, are represented by concrete objects. But the sign you spoke of shows a papyrus rolled and sealed. The eye doesn't see its contents. One is to look for the hidden meaning, which often calls for the intelligence of the heart. Akka spoke up. Master, is it right to say that in the old days this sign hadn't the meaning of immateriality but signified objects used by a writer? The thinking of the ancients didn't separate matter and spirit as we are beginning to do, the linguist replied. Human mentality changes, and with it its mode of expression. May we infer that our own is growing subtler, more complex, a symptom of decadence? What does it matter? Every age accomplishes its destiny, but throughout the ages the meaning of essential symbols is the same. The rolled papyrus will always indicate a hidden meaning behind the obvious. This shows you where you were wrong, Her Bak. You know how to write the Medunitors, but you don't know them. What you must learn today is their educative importance. How is it that having a cursive script which represents our hieroglyphs by signs easier to write, we should have chosen sign images that need skill on the draftsman's part for our initiatory texts? This question often puzzled the teachers in the peristyle, said a newly promoted student. That isn't surprising, replied the linguist. They are often led astray by the love of the complex, where the play of thought has free scope. This tendency is bound to become more marked with the development of mental faculties. It takes a strong disciple to breast the current and go constantly to the source. Master, where are we to look for the source? Asked Her Bak. In the legacy of our earliest sages, humanity dates far back. There's an image of scribes holding papyrus scrolls. Cataclysms have smitten earth. Certain men, great in true science, came to organise our country in heaven's image, that wisdom might be preserved and cultivated here in a, in inverted commas, sealed jar. They set going the system best suited for its transmission, which could only have come about through the pre-existence of a philosophical tradition, and because, at the outset, exact thinking coordinated all its elements, existing and to come. It was thus, the symbolist put it, that the Medunettas were chosen in such a way as to really signify all the qualities and functions implicit in the image. Each hieroglyph is therefore in itself the living symbol of the meaning sought. All that exists, all that is known to us, is a fact or hangs on a fact. That is why our symbols illustrate something tangible that leads thought to the exact idea of a vital order the thing suggests. Her Bak showed surprise. If this is so, I don't see why they are called Medunettas. Nettas aren't tangible powers, surely. You are wrong. If Geb is Netta of earth, it is because he gives his own character, himself, to the substance that makes it. Without him, earth wouldn't exist. He is the dry, cold principle incarnate in terrestrial matter. All that exists on earth is an incarnation of the principle Nettas. This Netta's name is sometimes written Geb, Her Bak remarked. The doubling of the B materializes the principle. The symbolist asked his colleague to carry on. The linguist said to Her Bak, I shall give you neither the properties nor the number of our letters until you are well aware of the importance of these secrets. But you need an example. If you are to understand our manner of thinking, I will give you 2 hieroglyphs on which to exercise your powers of research. The letter R and the letter N. The letter R is written in the lenticular shape of a half-open mouth. Now look for the ideas, qualities and functions this sign represents. First, its nature. The mouth, Ra, is the upper opening of the body, an entrance that communicates by 2 channels with the lungs and stomach. That is why this hieroglyph is also the generic word for an entrance, Ra. The mouth opens and shuts to eat, breathe, and speak as the eye. Art opens and shuts to receive or refuse light. The mouth's function is dual, passive and active. It receives air and food, emits breath and voice. The eye's function is dual likewise, the reception of light and the expression of organic and emotional reaction. The mouth's shape changes by separation of the lips for the performance of its functions. Opening, it widens or narrows like the shadow thrown on a disc by another disc, which gradually eclipses it. In the partially occulted disc, the lentil or dark mouth is the complement of the crescent still visible. This gradual change of shape produces portions of different size that represent parts of the occulted disc. The characteristic has given the name Ra to the parts of a whole, such as numerical fractions, chapters, and so forth. In the same way, enlargement of the lentil by diminution, I can't pronounce that word, of the crescent, diminution of the crescent, justifies the choice of R to mean augmentation, more than R. You, scribe, learned in the theme of the Medunetters, will note the determinative of the word abed, month, a small lentil in a crescent. No one has been able to explain to me the meaning of this device, but you will understand now the meaning we attach to the months. The continual increase and waning of the lentil or dark mouth in the luminous crescent. Bear in mind, said the symbolist, that all our concepts are based on natural functions. Eye and mouth are related to the two luminaries. The eyes are their symbols. The word for an eye, art, means also to make, to create. And isn't the name Ra written with a mouth? Heaven is our model and Ra is its sovereign master. His word is manifested by a shadow or thing. That is to say, everything is a shadow of Ra, which grows or diminishes, ascends or descends, becomes or disbecomes. The hieroglyph R symbolises this. The letter R, said the linguist, is of solar nature. The ideas of activity, circular movement, revolution, whether of stars or beings in a cyclical orbit attached to it. Her Bak tried to arrange these new thoughts. Isn't there some relation here with the sign Shen that surrounds the name Ren of our kings, he asked. In effect, yes. A name betokens a cycle, a loop on the thread of a soul's existence. The loop betokens a life or an incarnation. Under the name Ren, that is its actual destiny. If you know the letter N, you have the full meaning of Ren. N isn't the image of an object or being, but by the wave sign it denotes a function. Open your ears, Her Bak. The sun rises and sets, day follows night. Man and women attract or repel one another. A pendulum swings to and fro. Duality is in being and not being, a yes and a no, a high and a low. Hence, manifestation through the possibility of comparison. All nature is an affirmation of duality, an alternation more or less rapid. Alternation is the wave movement of nature, energetic, aerial, or liquid. For original energy is like still water which, under impulsion, manifests itself in waves, and these, growing as they go, carry the energy from centre to circumference. The letter N and its figuration give this wave character. This is sounding like the waver. This justifies the use of N in Nun, primordial or chaotic water. NW, primordial and aerial water. Newt, whose waves encompass earth. Oh, it was pronounced Newt, wasn't it? One can also say that N is that which environs or environs. It gives the measure of a wave or a totality of waves, the symbolist explained. That encloses the atmosphere of a sky, Newt, a place, Newt, a time, Wanut. Every city, every hour has its own character, which differs with the emanations, passions, activities of the organisms, whether stars or beings. That the wave or totality of waves encloses, and you must learn that N by its wave nature that exhibits alternation, analyzes and reveals constituent qualities that complement one another. Everything is disclosed by the N function. In this, added the linguist, you find the rationale of the locution. An edge. Her. Show your face. For nedge, in its exact meaning, expresses the making evident of the constitutive elements of a thing, organism, or word. If you wish to speak precisely, you will use this term for an inquiry by dissociation of constituents, never by synthesis. What is de, the role of de, in the word nedge? Asked Her Bak. Didn't I say I would explain 2 letters, no more? Can I by myself try to understand the others? You can study their living character in their symbols. This will be fruitful. But see that you don't draw fanciful conclusions beyond the concrete meaning. What I have explained with regards to R and N is summary and very incomplete, for I don't wish to reveal either their number or their secret role. Later on, you will understand the reason for this. When you do, your mouth will be shut like our own, but this is by no means the time to speak of such things. We may still impart the meaning of the 3 essential words that are formed from R and N, the symbolist proposed. N is that by which appearances manifest, that is to say, that which reveals the content of the container. It is also the letter that expresses the relation of, to, which, and N is the vibration that carries and transmits energy, like all that proceeds from nude. If to N you add the active and outgiving significance of R, you have ner, quantified energy. Ner is the energy which, as shown in the loop that encloses a name, ren is absorbed and imprisoned in a name. It is the proper activity of a thing, the power of its name and nature. That is why it is said, quote, to know a thing's real name is to know its power. To pronounce it exactly is to free its energy. Quote. Is that then the magic power of the name? Asked Her Bak. Indeed, yes, and it is formidable. It is most fortunate for men that true names are hidden from them, given the state of unconsciousness that is normally theirs. Her Bak sighed. It is more prudent, but what a pity. The students burst out laughing. The masters nodded indulgently. Are you sure, Her Bak, asked the symbolist, that you take the point of this lesson? Crestfallen, the disciple defended himself. May the master please not doubt it. My heart isn't as light as my tongue. It has understood at once that attention must be paid to inversion of letters such as RN and NR, that hieroglyphical pictures must be studied in minutest detail, and that knowledge of nature is necessary to understanding of letters in words. Correct. You have heard and understood. Then I will discuss the second word. Between N and R, the letter F is inserted, the letter for breath and for the air that quickens primitive life. Ner is energy, limited in nature by the matter in which it works. F brings animation and gives it a vital quality. Nefer. Its symbol is a heart hanging from a tube from a horizontal bolt like the propelling stern oar that by pressure on the liquid element turns the boat left or right. The image is absurd, but the symbol is true. The heart's movement is rhythmic, like the alternations of the world. Contraction and dilation are an essential alternation, cause of all formation. The air channel conveys breath, nef. The heart gives alternate movement. Breath and movement. Mover and engine of mobility generate heat, life's essential quality, hence the vital quality of energy, nefer. We have other words, Her Bak suggested, for this idea. QD, for example. The linguist reproved the novice sharply. QD has more of a quantitative and concrete meaning than nefer. It expresses a manner of being, modalities, material characteristics. If you would profit by this lesson, compare the third of these essential words, neter, with nefer. If in neter, F is replaced by th, a terrestrial letter, or by T, which is terrestrial and passive. Impatient, Her Bak interrupted once more. This seems unlikely. The neters can be neither terrestrial nor passive, or I know nothing about divinity. This got the answer it deserved. It is all well for men that the netters don't depend on their intelligence. All that is terrestrial is natural, Her Bak. But what is nature if not a manifestation of the netters? And what is passivity? The passive is that which is submitted. What is submitted to the laws of nature with never a possibility of derogation, if not those who are its principles. When Her Bak had acknowledged his mistake and his impudence, the linguist addressed himself to the disciples who were listening in silence. We have instructed our young brother, he said, in subjects of which you know the elements already. If any of you is uncertain on any point, let him speak without hesitation. I thought a netter was an entity, said Abu Shed to the symbolist, and that nefer meant fulfillment. The meaning you give these words is exact as regards to some particular aspect, not their intrinsic meaning. An entity is made up of the essential characteristics and properties of a type principle. Every number is an entity, but a pet is the netter of number. Each of our letters is an entity, but sefket is the netter of all written symbols. The netters are ideas, immanent or virtually contained in nature, which gives substance, form, throughout the phases of continuous creation and all genesis. Nefer is a vital quality in its state of maturity. It is the moment of fulfillment that gives generative potency to a thing or being, whether of its own seed, its particular quality, or its proper energy. Nefer, then, is a principle in a state of generative potency in the quality or function it stands for. As to the ordinary meanings the vulgar tongue ascribes to nefer, they offer, with less precision, some confirmation about the absolute meaning, since they express perfection, beauty, goodness, puberty, virility, and other states of fulfillment, bad qualities as well as good. Abu Shed thanked the symbolist. It is a great theme for reflection, what you have told us. It would help me if it could be fixed by an example. Isn't it the vital quality of the neter Osiris in seed that accounts for the seed's awakening, its death and resurrection in the living germ? It is so in truth, but you bring together in this definition various phases or aspects of the netter's function and quality. According to the phase or aspect under consideration, Osiris is qualified by a different epithet, neter nefer, neter a, or nefer. The epithet neter nefer refers Osiris to the moment when he exercises his generative power to revitalize the thing to which it relates. The epithet neter a specifies the Osirian function in its aspect as cyclic principle of the eternal return, in which the subject runs his course, going to the maximum of what is possible, then returning on itself in perpetual reiteration. The epithet nefer likewise gives the idea of an endless cycle as applied to earthly life. In the word wun, W-N, existence, the choice of symbol of the hare, shows the terrestrial existence that is meant. The hare, an extremely prolific animal, lives alone nevertheless. It makes its form among mounds of earth. Our hieroglyphic emphasizes its ears. Note the word for an ear, mesjer, M-E-S. To give birth, produce, djur is to limit, to reach limits. In fact, djur denotes the delimitation of a place or thing, defines its horizon, its orientation. Mesjer, then, signifies that which gives orientation, the very sense of the orientation not only of a terrestrial horizon, but the horizon of all existence. And there is another relation between the hare and Osiris. Osiris has a dual aspect. He is the neter of periodic renewal in vegetable life, the transformation of essential life into vegetable life, the passage of potency into act, the power latent in substance, to manifest in matter within the limit of its kind. But by the very fact of such transformation or manifestation, the neter becomes the vegetative power of the plant and is subjected to the laws that govern it. The rhythm of Osiris is the rhythm of becoming, in which the necessity of disbecoming or return is latent. His activity is in the ascent of the sap, his passivity in the inevitability of exhaustion, life and death in perpetual re-beginning. If his activity is drawn from the source of universal life, it is nevertheless subject to the laws that govern a particular form of it, the rhythms of number and nature. Osiris, then, is neter of the natural order. The necessity of perpetual re-beginning is Sethian, for Seth is the greed of possession and continuity which seizes and would appropriate the vital Osirian activity. The hare has a dual sign likewise, Sethian by its reddish colour, its form in desert ground, and the duality shown by its ears. Osirian because, having a highly developed sense of hearing, it symbolises the Osirian function that defines the spatial dimensions that condition all existence. It is this function that is given in the epithet neb djur. ascribed to Osiris. Osirian again because its fertility season coincides with the time of Osiris's rebirth. And finally because the hare's solitary life and sexual excitability make it a formidable intruder among rabbits, which will attack a hare in quest of females and emasculate it with their teeth. It is said that the sexual organs of Osiris were devoured by a fish. The epithet Wun Nefer situates the Osirian principle in a specific terrestrial existence with a Sethian and concretive aspect. This throws a strong light, said Abu Shed. Now I can distinguish the cosmic and particular Osirian principles. The symbolist approved. The cosmic aspect of this principle is the cycle that turns on heavenly conditions. The particular aspect relates to the life of a species. If you speak of the cosmic principle as at work in the generation of seed, you call it neter a'a. If you speak of the genesis of a specific seed, Osiris becomes Wun Nefer. It is the same with his other functions. If one of these terms is used for another neter, how is it to be understood? Abu Shed asked. In the same way, by applying it to the netter's principle or function. Thus, Ra, in the quality of neter a'a, is the perpetual going and returning between the horizons of east and west. Is it correct to say that neter were, one says neter a'a? Study the word. The idea of greatness in were differs from the idea of it in a'a. A'a means great to the limit of possibility in the thing thus qualified, its greatest size, greatest value, greatest yield. This with the understanding that having attained it can only return on itself and repeat. The idea of limit, particular to every being and thing, is in a'a. Were is amplitude, with the possibility of growth, a meaning connected with the idea of origin and universality, although the idea of a cycle is in it as well. It is less restrictive than in a'a by the possibility of enlargement, amplification in volume and growth. But a neter is a cosmic principle. It defines a law and as such has its own limits. The epithet were is only appropriate therefore to the netters whose property of growth is part of their functional quality, as for instance Isis, Nephthys, Neith, Mut and Osiris. The universal netter is himself the principle of were, which for reason Horus is also called Horus were. Her Bak drank the master's words as thirsty earth drinks water. A world of possibilities opened. He was impatient to attack the difficulties. Dare I say that one of your answers troubles me? He asked the linguist. You told Abu Shed to study the word. To do this, isn't it indispensable to know the meaning of the essential letters, since each has its number and properties? The symbolist exchanged a few words with the linguist, who said to Her Bak, our reply will be the last part of this lesson. It is true that you can't understand the secret texts or even get the real meaning of essential words or of names of gods without this knowledge. But knowledge of this order will not be given in this first initiation. You'll see the reason later. This much may be said, however. The word dejed is an audible expression of a word idea. Visibility, concretion, is effected by signs or characters which, in our sacred writings, give the idea form. Each sign, character, letter, then, is the concrete word, Medu, with an appropriate image. In this, we follow the example of Sefekt, who gives every natural form the lines, shapes and colours that display its character. Every sign letter has 3 attributes: form, number, sound. Sound is its essential attribute, its word, the principle of its magical action. That is why initiates are asked not to read certain texts aloud if they know the secret meaning. Number is a letter's intrinsic nature. Numbers, the determinative principles of form, are the real and fundamental letters. The sound and form of a letter are obvious attributes. Its real number has always been more or less hidden by various devices. The form of a letter is characteristic of its author's philosophical thinking and educative method. A number expressed by signs constitutes our writing, the Medu Netters. All written language is a construct whose principal elements, words and numbers, are given form by natural or conventional symbols. The truest language is that which the conventional is reduced to a minimum. The architecture of such writing is an assemblage of signs. In our Medu Netter combinations, there is a play of relationships between the numbers and functions of the letters assembled, in such a mode that it is possible to write down the elements of a secret teaching, such as the phases of a genesis or the interpretation of an allegory, by choosing words and disposing the letters in them so as to compose phrases that seem commonplace. A knowledge of analogies and the discovery of certain easily read clues might lead, after profound study, to the decipherment of the secret. But there remains this difficulty, that the sage who chooses one of the lines of becoming for his linguistic method left and intended a certain obstacle on which we are silent, with the result that no one can reach the secret by study alone. Why this cruel game, Master? Because our word architecture is conceived on the scale of the cosmic architecture. To reveal its construction would be to reveal the secrets of Genesis and becoming, and this must never be accorded but to the tried and tested, who will on no account make ill use of it. This is what justifies the temple and its secrecies. Her Bak bowed and put questions to his master. Is our language the only possible form for the communication of knowledge? It is the most perfect, said the sage, but it isn't the only possibility. Another system, based on the same knowledge, may lead to wisdom, but the ancients constructed our language in such a way that we can use it as a mirror in which to watch the development of our history with its epochs and phases of decadence and regeneration, as one might discern the superimposed phases of a monument that has been built and written on in stages, if one knew the pre-established design. It is possible to name and describe events by means of letters and combinations of letters that form a word. In short, we can even read what destiny writes. Sometimes, even, we name historical events after what we have read in this way. The disciple was divided between wonder and vague disappointment. If I can't find the secret by my own efforts, what use is my search? You may gain the right to knowledge through the training of a mind that will never betray it. What must I do to acquire such a mind? Begin by avoiding procedures that hinder it. Don't try to explain the formation of our language as a progressive experiment. Its elements were given in their entirety by sages who laid down its rules and lines of evolution at the beginning. Don't look for the beginning in a heterogeneous collection of idioms. All languages that have common roots with our own derive from one source further back in time than any you know of. Never doubt the philosophic unity of our language because of nuances arising from conditions of time and place, for such differences are but secondary, sometimes willed, sometimes accidental, and have never touched the essentials. Certain variations brought about according to rules foreordained for certain epochs are in themselves a teaching that confirms the existence of a pre-established order. Doubt this if you must, but if you watch sincerely for evidence, it will come to you in the form of solved problems. Master, I see what mustn't be done. May it be given me to learn how I am to go about my researches? The cardinal rule is this, said the linguist. Think simply, eschew criticism and specious argument. The thinking of our masters was simpler the closer it was to the source. The further we depart from it, the more we complicate things. Go straight to the natural fact that a symbol exhibits. Then, having closely examined it in all its aspects, you will discern the universal law which the natural fact itself symbolizes. Never neglect the image or form of a hieroglyph, whether it is the representation of a thing or animal, or a mythical composition such as the animal Seth or Anubis. It is made up of natural constituents, every detail of which has symbolic meaning. But don't make the mistake of substituting a word for an image by saying, for instance, the owl is M. Consider the nature, qualities and functions of the thing represented. An example, the image of a foot, B, evokes the idea of that which places itself, the idea of support, the idea of duality, because one foot isn't enough to walk with. Look for the simple and vitally true reasons for the choice. If several letters are grouped under one symbol, compare the other words that are spelt by the same group, under the same symbol or another. Meditate on the letters whose numbers you don't know but whose image suggests certain functions. The search for the natural relationships of such analogous groups will itself awaken in you the vital logic that moved those who composed them. Refraining from accusing a scribe of negligence or an author of childishness in face of textual anomalies or some harmless detail. Only a fool who, trusting in gross appearance, throws away the key to a treasury, acts in this way. Learn to put natural evidence before sceptical argument. Learn to reject compromise. Learn to approach truth by daring what looks absurd. The man who has never suffered because of his quest will never know the value of an answer given him. Learn to sacrifice gladly a long stretch of misconceived effort for a moment of truth. Then you will be able to receive the knowledge of the ancients without the danger of ingratitude and profanation.